Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. And we'll go ahead and get started with a roll call. Christina, could you help us with that, please?
Absolutely. Okay. Louie? Kira?
Here.
Ellen?
Here.
D.A. Becton?
Present.
Kamisha? Michael? Cheryl?
Yes, ma'am.
And Stephanie.
Yes. And for those in the public, if you're not on the committee, if you could drop your name and organization, agency that you're with, that would be great. And thank you for joining us. So we'll move now to public comment, and public comment is on anything that is not on the agenda. All right. Seeing no comments. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. I missed your hand.
I use the feature and everything.
I know. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to, quick point of order, because I'm at least noticing, and I know that some of the meetings, some of the subcommittee meetings have been canceled for the various subcommittees within the last month or so, but I just wanted to clarify if the new appointed members are officially in their subcommittees, just so I can make sure I'm following up if we're not seeing them. I feel like I'm not sure that I see the newer members always in the subcommittee space.
Do we have an update on that? I know the last the full our job meeting that came up with some, I think it was the last one, with some of the newer members not necessarily even knowing that we have these committees. So I don't know if there's been any type of outreach to them, maybe Patrice or Ellen as the chair. I don't know if you all have anything you can share on that.
No, I don't have any update on it. However, I can be sure to, I actually reached out to them in regards to applying for membership for next year. But I didn't get any feedback one way or another regarding which subcommittees they would like to participate in. To my understanding, they do have the information as to what subcommittees are. But no, I've not heard from them directly about which ones they would wish to serve on.
Okay, thank you. Ellen, I saw you come off mute.
No, thanks, Patrice. I don't have any additional information, but I don't know if Christopher does.
Maybe for the next full body meeting, we could, like, for the ones that are new, we could just then and there say, hey, these are the groups that we have. Can you all choose one right now? So at least we can get that taken care of and then be able to do more outreach to them to make sure that they're at these committee meetings. Because, I mean, it is important for us to be here, and it is a little disheartening when we do have to cancel because we can't make quorum. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. Any other public comments? All right. Next, we have approval of the record of action from our July 21st meeting. There is the attachment. Are there any questions, comments from the committee? Are there any public comments on the record of action? Seeing none. Cheryl? Oh, okay. I think that was All right. Seeing none, I'll open it up for an offer to move to vote on the minutes or the record of action.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Kara. And a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Helen. And Christina, if we could do a roll call vote.
Yep. Louis is not here. Kira,
Aye.
Ellen,
Yes.
DA Becton,
Aye.
Tamisha hasn't joined. Michael, Cheryl,
Yes.
and Stephanie.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our next item. And this is about our work plan objective number 5 around school discipline. We've had some conversations around this and the direction that we wanted to go. Chris, was LaShante gonna make it today?
Yeah, it's a really good question. That was the plan. And I reached out to her earlier. So I mean, it's worth saying that she was included on the invite originally. So usually, I think the last few times that she's been invited here, I've needed to go and include her relatively late in the game to make sure that she has the invite. This time, she was originally included on the invite, but I did reach out to her earlier today to say I can rescind, the invite if I need to rescind it. And I haven't heard back. So I hope that she's still able to make it. But I think more or less what is on the attachment is self-explanatory, and we may need to just sort of do our best, that being the two of us, to walk folks through it, and until she's here and maybe able to answer more substantive questions.
All righty then.
And I can start just by saying that I know that a lot of really fruitful and also I think spirited discussion, to say the least, has been had around the eligibility criteria for what are going to become divertible offenses or not, or what are going to be excluded from eligibility for diversion. And essentially the reason that that we have pivoted for this agenda is, one, because these are both two sort of identified goals or projects that we want to work on. So if one sort of dominates one meeting, then it may be, it's probably in the best interest of staying on track to have to highlight or emphasize the other one, but also because my understanding is that, something that came up in that discussion was that we need to make data-informed decisions about what those excluded offenses would be, and what the racial impact is going to be of those. And we know that we are, unfortunately, to a great degree at an impasse right now in terms of the data that we have available, or at least that we're able to use in a meaningful way to inform decisions like the ones that you guys are trying to make here in this diversion subcommittee. And that seems like it's going to be the case at least for some time into the near future. And so that question would linger, right? That question or that point would remain, that we don't have the information to inform our decisions about what the impact is going to be on folks of color in particular in Contra Costa County if this list or the proposed list goes forward, right? And so rather than continuing to say that, rather than continuing to raise that, rather than continuing to have debate about that when that is a pretty set point, at least for now, we figured we could shift in a direction where we actually could get some work done. And so that's why today's agenda is relatively short and speaks directly to work plan objective 5 around school discipline, school to prison pipeline, and just, trying to find out which resources there are potentially incentivize, schools or school districts to utilize certain resources in lieu of suspension and expulsion. And as a part of that, also wanting to hear directly from youth about, what they need, about how they understand their needs or deficits or lacks in the schools, and what they would like to see done about them. And just as I had hoped, my filibustering has given LaShante the opportunity to step into the space. So LaShante, thank you for joining us. You are right on time, and we would love to have you introduce yourself, if you don't mind. And if you want, I think maybe with a little help from perhaps Christina, you could have access to share your screen if you wanted to walk us through the attachments.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my screen as well. LaShante, would you prefer that?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I was having trouble. Yeah, if you could share your screen, that would be great.
Sure. One moment.
And hello, everyone. My name is LaShante Smith, and I serve as the Director of School Climate in the West Contra Costa Unified School District. So I am currently overseeing several initiatives related to climate, school discipline, as well as mental health. So glad to be in this space with you all. Should I just start, Chris? I didn't know if you said start or not.
You can definitely start. I think the lead-in has been given in your stead. The only thing that I will add is that everyone remember, because this is because, as LaShante said, she works for West Contra Costa Unified, right? That this is a pilot, right? This project as it is laid out, or this plan as it is drafted here, would be a pilot for West County. We know that we would need to replicate and probably tweak and update a similar process for other parts of the county, and that is what we intend to do, right? So this is just the first bite at the apple, and we are not looking to neglect or be inequitable to every other region in the county as well.
Thank you. The last time that I was here, I kind of presented what we had been working on as a larger group. So a couple of us on this call were a part of a group that went to Georgetown, and we were basically tasked with coming back to implement a project that is geared toward disrupting inequities in school discipline that lead to early justice involvement from our youth and disproportionate involvement. And so from there, we had different steps. But then when I was able to talk to Chris and look at the work that the RJOB is doing, we really wanted to put together a process to hear directly from our students around their experiences. And then I'll preface this by saying that we know that when school was reopened and our buildings were reopened, I think schools across California just saw a variety of needs related to student mental health, related to behavior, and related to safety. So this is a draft, so would love any input. This is not final, but the goal that we want to start with is a youth listening campaign, is what I'm calling it. And we want to create listening spaces that are designed in collaboration with young people across our district to hear their voice related to school climate. So we want to hear what the needs are related to mental health, safety, behavior, access to resources. And then our target group is kind of aligned with the data that we previously saw that was disproportionate related to school discipline practices in our district. And that was affecting young people at the secondary sites from grades 7 through 12. And so the plan is that We have youth serving in different capacities already across our district, so on different youth councils. We also have youth who have been through like disciplinary proceedings and disciplinary hearings who would really like to be involved in a process that's designed to really get at what's needed at schools. And then we also have various clubs and organizations, as well as a district-wide youth council where young people come together to share their needs. So the plan is to work with that group of students to begin to think about what this format will be, what the process will be. So really to sit back as adults, but allow them to kind of guide us through what this can actually become. So again, that committee would be tasked as the lead committee, and they would be creating the questions and then the format for this listening session. And then we would be doing some specific outreach to some of our marginalized youth, our English language learner population, our homeless foster population, and our African American youth. Then we would go into this listening circle period. Again, this is all draft. It would also be based on what our youth think would be the most impactful way to get their feedback. But we were thinking of a 2-week period. So it would be like a youth listening campaign over a 2-week period. We chose 2 weeks because in the school site, a lot of things happen. So we felt that this was doable, especially if you're just targeting the secondary sites. So there aren't a large number of secondary sites in our district. So it's doable is what I'm saying. All high school and middle school students would have the option to participate, maybe not in the main circle, but they would have a way to give their feedback to the folks in the room. And again, I don't know if we want to design it to where anyone can come in. It would be youth-led. The next thing is that we would want to just make sure that we had opportunities for virtual participation, because what I'm hearing already from some young people is that some people just want to do Zoom meetings. They feel more comfortable. They don't want to come in person to things. So we want to just make sure we have that opportunity. So once we get all of that, then we would take back this data and we would be looking at it as this lead committee, like what was said, what was needed, what are the missing gaps, what are the resources that we don't have, what are the resources that we do, and kind of start doing that needs analysis that would lead us to disseminate this information by the second semester to various stakeholders. So again, when we did work originally with Impact Justice, one of their recommendations was that we do provide like training and further guidance to sites based on like some of the needs and the data. So this would just be another data point that we would be able to provide to sites that would allow us to get the appropriate resources and trainings, because sometimes the training should be focused on adults, right? And so the young people would be kind of guiding what training and capacity building is needed for adults. I already said we would begin the resource mapping and then the allocation. That would be right around the time where our district LCAP will be created, our annual review plan. So it could potentially be tied to funding based on what we're seeing. And we would be presenting findings and recommendations to these various groups and areas that way. And if you can go down, so the project leads. So of course we want our district staff will just kind of lead the process in getting the groups together, but we have student board members, we have the all youth council. This group, of course, will give input. We want to collaborate with the Rise Center. So Stephanie has been on meetings where we've talked about this. So definitely want to collaborate because they've done youth listening sessions in the past. And then our African American Parent Advisory Committee, which is known as our APAC, their executive committee has already wanted to do something like this. So I pitched this idea, and so they were behind it. And they are connected to various community organizations that could get us the voice that's sometimes missing at the table. So that's all that I have about that so far.
Thank you, LaShante. We can go ahead and open it up for discussion with our members.
LaShante, I just have a quick question. I know that a lot of the sort of meat, if you will, of the plan. As a vegetarian, I feel a way about the fact that I just said that. Sorry, but as this gets more rounded out, right, by young people saying what they think are the best ways to collect information or what they think some of the questions should be, and so on and so forth. Are those, coming iterations going to be things that this group could potentially get a look at, and at least offer some feedback? While it wouldn't, I guess it wouldn't control, and that's not a role that we need to be in, because we do want this to be youth led. Just being able to kind of see that and have some level of response, or point out things that might be missing that we might want to consider as it goes forward.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely put draft on this because I think it will go through some ebbs and flows once young people get involved. They may say like a lot of it is whack, right? And they want to do something different. And the goal is to pivot as adults and allow them to design this. So yes, definitely I can come back after I meet with the initial group. So I've already made contact to try to meet with the youth council, the young people I've identified who've had those kind of behavior incidents, if you will, and have been in like the discipline process this year, as well as our youth board members that I will be reaching out to.
Thank you.
LaShante, you may have mentioned this, and I missed it, but when are you hoping to start the 2-week process?
I have an ambitious goal to get this 2-week youth listening campaign before students leave for winter break.
Okay.
So before December. I know that's very broad, but I'm hoping once I meet with the youth, we can kind of narrow down a day. I chose December because it would get us information for semester 2, and really we start to allocate things that we're doing and funding and training and all of that. But there's also like periods that are after finals or before finals where there's not a lot going on at schools. And so this could potentially be something that folks could get excited about. And then there's just some like lag time, if you will, end of October, after like right before the Thanksgiving break. So there's just different things that happen in schools. So I'm hoping it'll align to that time.
Okay.
How do we, a couple of things. How just one semantical thing with the word youth listening, because are they listening to us or are we listening to them? That's first. But secondly, how do we make sure that the ones who always seem unseen and unheard are really the voices that we hear, right? So what's the outreach going to look like to get those voices heard, the ones who don't seem to speak up? There's always young people who will be fearless in speaking up. So what does that outreach look like so that we get some of these unique voices?
So the first part, yes, listening is definitely listening to the youth. I think adults, we've talked a lot, so this listening would be youth-based. The second thing, I think that's going to be for us to decide around how we're reaching out to like our marginalized groups. The one group in particular that I have the closest contact with are young people who are involved in like disciplinary proceedings, or who have done things at school sites that have led them to have to seek out alternative placements. And just in the time I've spent with them, a lot of them want to say more about things that are happening at schools, kind of their experience, the lack of things being available to them. And so I think that's the first step, is like reaching back out to those young people. But really, I don't have an answer for the specific outreach yet, because we want it to be led by kind of this lead committee of young people who will be designing it. But our African American Parent Advisory Committee, they had some very specific things they wanted to bring to the table as far as like outreach to young people who are not, again, the ones who are at the forefront, running for their youth councils at schools, the ones who are just participating in extracurricular activities. So that's what we're definitely trying to design this around. But hopefully in future iterations, I can bring back and get your input once that outreach is decided.
I'm wondering too, reaching out directly to, is it Greenwood?
Mhm.
Reaching out to them specifically to see if some of those students could participate as part of the lead committee. And I think, Cheryl, you may know, I think Safe Return runs a leadership program there.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so it may be like reaching out to them to see if they have some young people in that leadership program that
Yes.
could be part of that lead committee.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I met
Yes.
with Safe
Yes.
Return. I met with Safe Return last week, and I was like letting him know about Carlos. I was letting him know about this process that we were designing too. And then he did tell me about the mentorship program that they have some young people involved in. And so I told him I would keep him in the loop as well. And that's I can note that about Greenwood Academy, just to make sure that we do an extra push there.
Good. Yeah.
And
Good,
that's the
because
only
that's-
alternative school, correct?
Yeah,
Or is there-
it's only Greenwood Academy. You have Middle College, but that's a different type of alternative
Yeah.
school. And then you have Vista Virtual, which is the independent study program, but we'll also do outreach to them too, because some students choose to go to independent study because they feel like things are missing in the school system, and they can't go there. So.
But besides that, there's also students just throughout, I'm just going to tell you, throughout WCCUSD that are not in the system, but who just are, who are also not in, who just not, feeling a part of the system either. So I think it's just some of the outreach may just be speaking to the teachers who know, the superintendent who knows, who may know who in the schools you can talk to, but the teachers know. The teachers know which students sit in the back of the class and who are quiet and don't speak, and whose voices aren't heard. So I think it's more than just who is already in the system, but who's sitting on the fringe and who may fall off. So we want to catch them before they even get to the point of instability and hear their voices. That's the voices I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones who feel like nobody cares about their voice. So they sit back and they don't volunteer and they don't say anything. Those are the voices. So what kind of outreach are we doing to them? Where they never raise their hand and they never think that their opinion counts.
Right. And apologies if you thought I said in the beginning that it was only for young people who are already involved in our system. I originally started this with that this is going to be an opportunity for all students to participate from grades 7 through 12, which is our target group. And really the outreach is going to depend on what our kind of committee comes up with of how we're going to enable all students to like have a voice in this. So I don't have the specifics of that because I don't want to put something down until I just speak to the youth committee. But definitely we want an opportunity for all young people to participate. And with that, I imagine, as we already do, kind of reaching out to teachers, school staff, and other educators about specific students that we can target. But I don't want to put that in the plan yet until I kind of hear where we're going with it.
Okay, no, I understood you. Thank you.
Question.
Christopher has his hand up.
Thanks. I'm glad you saw it. Nobody else cared.
Yeah, because I did not see it. Sorry.
It is all good. Trying to, just trying to follow protocol and such. But I guess so. I would love to hear more. Not, and I'm not directing this necessarily at Cheryl, but at anyone who might have some more ideas or thoughts about what that outreach could look like to be more inclusive, or particularly what you have seen or heard about or know about like happening in other places. Because one of the things that's coming up for me is, as Cheryl is speaking, is I'm wondering if there is a role, and if anyone has thought about the role potentially of surveys in addition to the sort of live feedback and responses, which might give folks who feel less comfortable speaking up in spaces or having access to Zoom or whatever the case may be, like an opportunity, and how those might be disseminated, right? Because maybe not everybody has a phone or something like that to use to submit those responses, and certainly making sure that however the survey is developed in terms of questions and whether folks are ranking things or rating things out of 10 or whatever they're doing, that there's some room for that there's some room for them to give some bit of narrative feedback as to why they scored something a certain way, or did you have anything that we haven't addressed that you wanted to say? Here's your space to kind of tell us that. Just curious if that has been considered, or if that may work its way into this draft, as well as if anybody else had any other ideas along the lines of something like that that could be helpful.
No, but I just noted it all. And would love for anyone else to just give ideas. Again, this was just like a first draft of what we were thinking, but I'm really coming to this group because if we're designing something to pilot in our district, we are a larger district in West Contra Costa. And so if we can get this done right, then we can, use this model around the county. So that's the real goal. So please give your feedback.
Thank you. Before I go, Cheryl, I see your hand up.
I'm practicing like Christopher. So Chris, yes. So I did have an idea, and I have seen this work. So it's very similar to what Chris said, a survey, but not just any survey where you just send an email or ask people to use phones, which has become the norm. And like you said, not everyone has email or a cell phone or whatever, or they don't have it. It doesn't come across equitably because you don't get all the responses. But when it comes to students, they got to go to class. And one of the things we know in California, they have to go to English class, right? Or social studies class. So if you want to make sure that you're getting the voices of the ones who think they're unseen and unheard, is that you go to that class and you talk to them about what it is we're trying to do. If we can go talk to a group of mayors and we can go talk to a group of police officers, then we can go talk to these students. And we can make a presentation to these students and tell them what it is we're trying to do. And we can go stand in front of these classes and we can talk to them about why this is that is important, not just to us, but why it's important to them to have their voices heard. We can present to them a very small presentation, tell them why why this affects them, and ask them to participate. Give them the survey and tell them to be as honest and forthright as they want to. Not to put your name on it, but we want your feedback. I guarantee you that you're going to be the voices of the ones who normally would not speak up with a vocal voice, but they will write down what they have to say. One thing I do know is that about students. And I've done this on other occasions for other things. When we've done this in Albany Unified for class choice, and they've spoken up about different programs in the curriculum and things like that. And it's worked because they saw us taking time out of our schedule as adults to come and actually just speak with them. So I think it's good, to have DA Becton, to have our public defender, Ms. Ellen, come in with us, and we're all there together speaking about this. Ms. Stephanie, Mr. Misha and Christopher and me, having us all there from representing Ms. Patrice and Ms. Kira, all of us, and Sir Melvin too. All of us there from different sectors representing this legal punishment system. I think that it could have a powerful presence, but also send a powerful message. Oh, who I leave out? No, it could have just a powerful message that's this is the system, but we care not just about you, but about what you have to say. There you go. Does that help you, Ms. LaShante?
Yeah, sorry, confirm. Yes, definitely. And I think that one of the things, again, that I hope with this is, like you're saying, that this is an opportunity for us to treat getting the opinions and needs and voices of young people just like we do with any other group that we're addressing, any other group that we think that we want to hear from. So I wanted to be impactful in that way. But I do like the idea of like kind of just setting it up and having like more of like a presentation around like, we want to hear from you. We want your voice. We want you to participate. We want everyone to participate. So yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl, for bringing that up, because that is a really good suggestion. I was just going to share a little bit about, because RISE did a youth listening campaign a few years back. And the first thing that we did for that process was to go directly to the classrooms, because that's one of the quickest way to get young people, because they have to be there. And our process was a little longer than 2 weeks, but we did think about what were the different ways that we were, what were the different methods and ways our inquiry process was going to be. So the first part was to go to classrooms and tell them what we were doing and ask them to take a survey. And then that also, after that survey, they had an opportunity, if they wanted to participate in smaller focus groups, they could do that. And then they had another opportunity to have like one-on-one sessions with people if they wanted to do that. And then also with some of the other surveys that we've done, we've had them available in paper, also over the phone, or if they want to come in, if they're like in the center, they're doing it on an iPad. So there's like various ways they can actually access providing information for them. So.
Thank you. And then I will share with the group that another way our district or many districts across California collect youth voice is through a survey called California Healthy Kids Survey. But I think what's missing in that, to Chris's point earlier, is that kids may answer one way, but there's no narrative behind it. And so they may say, no, I don't feel safe at school. No, I don't have a trusted adult here, or yes, I do. But that's all you see. You just see very just very cut and clean data, and then you have to make decisions based on that, but you don't really have the qualitative data to back it up to really think about what is being said. And then, who knows, with California Healthy Kids data, it's great, but then there's some kids who don't want to answer it for fear of like things being used against them. So I really hope that this would be an opportunity for folks to, if they want to talk, if they want to write it, if they want to call in or do it on an Instagram or Snapchat, like all these different ways to kind of just get their voice and hear what they're saying. Maybe making a TikTok video. I don't know. I'm just thinking of different ways that I've seen kids get information out right now, and like, how do we go there? And I agree that 2 weeks is short. And so we'd really have to have a clean process. My worry is that there's so many competing priorities, unfortunately, in our school district, that if we allocate too much time to it, it just becomes like something that's not taken as serious. And then it's just a lot. But that could also be revised. Maybe young people say we should do this over a year. I don't know what will come out. But we don't have to stick with the 2 weeks. But I was just hoping to get it aligned to the timeline where these findings can be presented to the various boards when decisions are being made.
Any other comments from our members? Or questions? Ellen, I think I saw your hand raised. I was trying to scroll.
I'm doing a real life hand. Too lazy to do the virtual hand, sorry. Yeah, I really like the idea, your idea, Stephanie, and Christopher's idea of allowing for more expansive information and more of a space to share substantively if LaShante is able to overcome some of the challenges with executing that. I can see some value there. And I also appreciated Cheryl's suggestion about how to get that engagement on the front end and having maybe some voices in the room to try and get the ball rolling and really kind of create the right level of engagement and context about what this survey is, why this information is valuable or helpful, and that might be a really good way for us to all to get engaged on our end too, but also to really create a kind of space where these kids might feel more interested in investing and sharing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Ellen. I'm wondering too, not to put more work on people's plates, but I was thinking about the community engagement committee. And initially, I know they were talking about listening sessions in a different context, but same but different. But also wondering like if there's a possibility to get them involved in some capacity as well. That's just a thought.
I think it's perfect. No, I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect.
And is that the community engagement committee a part of this body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a part of our justice.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I thought in the beginning that was like kind of offered too, because there was going to be like a separate campaign, if you will, on that side. I don't know. I just remember coming to this meeting and hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the more support, the better, and we can align. It would that would be great.
Yeah, I would
just say this.
Oh, go for it.
Go ahead, Kristen. No.
Okay, so two things here. Number one, I think the more time we have to think about sort of what that role might be or what some of that synergy might be, to sort of iron that out for them and have a solid ask. I think that would be pretty helpful. And the other thing that I would say is the listening sessions that the CEF has conducted so far have essentially been meetings. You know what I mean? The first one, literally, I think was in fact, I think they both were considered, public meetings for purposes of the Brown Act. And I think we the second iteration was a little bit better in terms of its accessibility and sort of not being so formal. The first one we had, it was literally a meeting with a long public comment section, and then we needed to get to the agenda, for the rest of the meeting. So we had a 2-hour meeting, I think it was, and the first hour it's like, let's get your feedback, and then it's like, okay, and now we have to do this agenda before we go home. So just recognizing that, for whatever value may be there, and I think there probably is some, there would also be some some shifts, right, that would need to happen to make this accessible, particularly for young people, depending on what the role is that the CEF would play.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I wasn't, because they were pretty much meetings that those listening sessions were, but just thinking about going back to what Cheryl was saying, like if part of this process looks like doing a presentation, or like actually meeting some of the young people that we want to participate in this, and we're going out and actually meeting them, telling them what we're doing as our job, I think part of this is community engagement. And so it's actually kind of getting out of our meeting space and going to where the people are, which we haven't necessarily been doing.
So you're saying you don't want to be voluntold by Cheryl that we're all going to the school?
Well, I'm just saying, look, if you can see her, you can be her. And we never know, we might find our next DA, our next public defender, our next head of a CBO, our next, we don't know. But if they can see us in front of them, they get rid of any stereotypes they may have. Our next scientist, we don't know. But but getting in front of them and speaking to them from our real voices and letting them see the power of that, I'm just saying, there's power in it. I know DA Becton wanted to say something because she came on mute and she in the camera, so I'm gonna be quiet.
No, first of all, I just wanted to thank LaShante for the presentation. I really think that you've been very thoughtful about the inclusiveness of, and I think the comments about the outreach are great as well. I think this is an idea that we've in many groups, talked about for a long time, and so this would just be very valuable to have this outreach and to get the feedback. I think it can really be helpful in a lot of different spaces. So I'm looking forward.
Thank you, DA Becton.
Oh, one of the things that came to mind just as I was listening to all of the great ideas is well, a couple of things. Many of you have probably participated in the listening sessions that we had pre-COVID, obviously, that Michelle Milam used to put together with the foster care involved youth. And so, and to me, and those spaces were really created just, for them to be able to share with all of us their experiences and how, places where we really might fail as a system, if you will. And so I think that kind of a setting could be very, very powerful. For some reason, I don't know if they've been prepped or primed, but they were pretty free to talk about their experiences and some of the damage that was caused upon them. Some positive experiences as well. So I really think this is just a great idea to be able to hear from all of these different groups and then take that information to help us go forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot about those. Those were really good events for the foster care youth. Any other comments from committee members? Okay, I'm not seeing any, no hands. I'll open it up for public comment. No public comments from anybody?
All right, I just have one question, one last question for LaShante, I think. And that is in terms of the next steps as far as like the other leads, sort of taking a look at what you have, and maybe even, probably not even exactly what we're seeing, because you mentioned you were noting some things that have been mentioned here today. Just curious sort of what that timetable looks like. If we should, if you think we should potentially check in next month, and this will be in a different space, or is it more like, at a November meeting, we come back for, a more substantive update, and just sort of what the next steps are.
That's a great question. I think next month, if you all have space in your agenda to make time for updates, I could definitely do that. I'm trying to get the ball rolling. So hopefully I would have already met with the young people and we would have like a more thought out plan. And again, it can be completely different, but I do want to just present that and then continue to move forward. So yes, I can definitely provide you with updates next month.
I'm sorry. One more question for you. Is there any particular support in those next steps that this group could potentially have?
You taking all my questions, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Great minds,
Yeah, I think the biggest support would be right now is when we do kind of present the, I don't want to say finalized process, but the process that we're coming up with to get as much feedback as possible. And then potentially, I don't know if we'll need like funds, because I'm also thinking about incentives for students participating, snacks, food, different ways to get them to come out. I know in the past when I did listening circles when I was at a school site, we got almost all the school to participate because we were able to give gift cards. And they were very vocal and they participated, and they, got an incentive for it. And so I just think just different avenues, if you all have different avenues of funding that you have access to, that would be another great support.
Great questions, Chris. Any other comments from the public? LaShonda, real quick, are you, related but not, but the conversations around the community schools, are you involved in those conversations as well? Because I know, I think they've talked about kind of different listening sessions, but may have some similarities that they're planning on doing.
Yeah, so I've been involved in some of the conversations and the monthly meetings, and they are doing listening sessions, but they aren't it's not in this format, so it's not targeting like youth. It's more of like adults and some youth. It's not to this capacity, but thank you for bringing that up, because I should just actually send an email out to them as well about what we're doing here to see how the work intersects. But yeah, they're doing listening sessions with specific groups and providers.
Okay, thank you. And then I know you mentioned outreach with like APAC, and I know you want to talk to us more about how we can support RISE, meaning us. But other than outreach, APAC, how would they be participating in this?
Just making sure I understand. Are you saying how would APAC participate in this process?
Yes.
So I'll be meeting with them. They wanted to like take a co-lead in it, but I'm not sure of the specifics. What I heard is that they want to be in on the design and on the outreach part. So really outreaching to, so again, APACs are African American Parent Advisory Committees, and they're supposed to be active at all of our school sites. So they want to take the lead and getting that information to the APAC that are at the school sites, who then would get the information to the students of those parents and families.
Okay.
That was my understanding. Yeah. And then for Rise's involvement, I need to check with Rise, i.e. Stephanie.
All right, I guess we'll be setting a meeting. All right, well, this was really good. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, well, thank you so much, LaShante, for presenting this draft plan. Thank you everyone for your questions and comments. I feel like we have a path forward in kind of the direction we're taking our objective 5. So that's exciting. Next up on our agenda, we've already kind of talked about next steps. I don't know if there's any other next steps we need to talk about other than what Chris mentioned before around the diversion eligibility. There's a few things that we still need to gather in order to carry that conversation forward, which was focused on the adults, and also to carry the conversation or bring the conversation regarding eligibility for youth offenses. But the hope is that we can have that conversation next month, hopefully as well. And then hopefully even be able to finalize to some degree, I think, the eligibility criteria for adults before the end of the year. So make sure I don't see any hands. Any other next steps, Chris?
Yeah, not even really a next step. It's just probably a typo on my end, I'm guessing, but I'm looking at the agenda and it says that the diversion subcommittee meeting, the next one, is October 18th, which is a Tuesday. And I know that offhand because the Thursday that it will actually be is the 20th, and that is my birthday. So just wanted to point out that there won't be some special session on October the 18th, but it'll be October 20th, which will be the Thursday. So, and I'm sure that the calendar, like the actual calendar, is right, and I probably just typed the wrong date, in drafting it or something like that. But just wanted to point that out.
Thanks, Chris. Happy almost birthday.
Thank you.
DA Vector.
Just real quick, I just wanted to mention that we have officially pushed out our neighborhood restorative partnership, which we had talked about in the past, which is used to be called something like community courts. And we have trained one cohort that started of residents that started hearing cases in Central County, and we're now training our cohorts in West and East. So if you all know of anyone who has the time to volunteer to sit as a panelist and resolve cases outside of the criminal justice system for us, please send them my way. And if you all, and I don't know if this particular program made it to the list of diversion type programs when we were talking about them before. So if not, we need to add this one.
Yeah, I can't remember if it did.
I think it may have, because I feel like I remember you talking. It was one of those things that was coming online, and that you I feel like you discussed it, at length, because it probably was listed there. Question for you: is there a website or something like that for it? Just because in thinking about how we just talked about CEF and what its role could be, like I wonder if taking this to CEF, even though not necessarily asking you to be at the next CEF meeting, but having something that they can, a link that they can click or something, and just saying, make sure that you share this out to people might be helpful.
Actually, if it would be great to have an opportunity to present to that committee, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, even if it's not me, it could be the person in our office who's really doing all the coordinating.
That works too.
Just let us know. And then the information about it is on our website too.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, this was a very good meeting. You get what, 54 minutes of your time back. Thank you everyone for joining. We are going to go ahead and adjourn, and I will see you all next month. Take care.
Thank you.